Freecam PE version 1.1 is finally here. You will now be able to get these amazing cinematic shots like you see here, and also here that you otherwise would not be able to. You can now use Freecam to take advantage of practically all that the vanilla camera command has to offer with a simple and easy to use GUI without having to be opt or use any kind of vanilla commands while inside of your world, realm, or server. Pretty cool, huh? So let's jump into it. I'm going to briefly go over how to use Freecam, go over bug fixes, new features, and show you how to download this. With that being said, I would highly recommend watching the previous video, that way you understand how to use the Freecam add-on entirely. So if you just now downloaded the Freecam add-on and you have not ran it in the past on your world, there's a few things that you're going to want to do first. The first thing is familiarize yourself with the command, so you're going to type in Freecam help, and that's going to bring up all of the commands. Now if you've already used Freecam in the past, or you have just recently watched the video like you were supposed to, then you might already be familiar with some of these commands. However, there are some new ones on here. I'm going to be going over those shortly after a brief review. If this is the very first time running this inside of your world, then you're going to want to type in the !chat spam x command. And as soon as you hit enter on that, it is going to disable the send command feedback for the world. This is going to keep all of the commands that the code is running in the background from popping up across your screen. Once you have done that, you can go ahead and put yourself into Freecam mode by typing !FC. And the very first time that you do this inside of a world that just had Freecam loaded onto it, you're not going to be able to move at all, and that's because you have yet to set your speed. So you can set your speed between crawling speeds 1 through 5 or regular speeds 1 through 10. For now, I'm going to pick a nice middle ground for speed 5, and that's going to set my speed to speed 5. So now whenever we try to jump, we're going to proceed forward at speed 5, and then whenever we crouch, we can go backwards at speed 5 as well. After you set your speed for the first time, it's always going to remember your speed. So for example, if we exit out of Freecam and then go back into Freecam, we're still going to be in speed 5. Same thing goes if we set our speed to speed 10. We can zoom around really fast, and then if we exit out of Freecam and then go right back into Freecam, we're still in speed 5. Now the benefits of having Freecam is that this is not spectator mode, this is actual Freecam like Java edition. So that means whenever you bring the camera all the way over here, the camera is not loading any of this area. The only area that is loaded is the area that is directly by the player. With that being said, the Freecam makes a perfect testing tool for all of your mob farms and such, because your player can stay at the AFK location and you can get your camera nice and up close. That way you don't have to worry about the mobs loading and unloading or blowing up on the player. This is of course different than spectator mode, because spectator mode does continuously load the area, and as soon as you go into spectator mode, all of the mobs are going to despawn around you. Now, unlike spectator mode, if you go underground, you might be able to see some stuff underground depending on the angle. However, most of it is going to be a little on the difficult side and can unrender at times depending on the angle. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see as well underground like you would be able to with spectator mode. Unfortunately, this is on Mojang's side of things, and it has to do with the optimization of Minecraft Bedrock. Hopefully this will be fixed in the future. However, it does work in a pinch. You just have to sit there and kind of adjust the angle until everything that you want to see comes into render. Now that's going to conclude the recap for Freecam. However, if you want to know more about Freecam before this update, then you can check out that video in the link down inside of the description. That's going to basically tell you everything that you need to know about Freecam, how to set it up, how it works, and stuff of that nature. However, this video is going to focus more on the new features. Now, most of these commands were covered inside of the previous video of Freecam. However, we do have some new ones, such as !KB, and then we have !PS, !PSX, and also the chat spam X, which you've already seen. You might notice that the Freecam how-to is no longer here. That has been moved to a README file inside of the core folder for this add-on. So whenever you initially downloaded this file, whenever you found the MC add-on file, it should be right there with it, along with frequently asked questions and a few other text documents. The KB kills all barrier blocks for the player, and that has to do with the player stay. So if we go ahead and enable the player stay, you are going to need the permission in order to enable this. So all of these new commands on the top here have to do with the player stay and surrounding the player with barrier blocks. Now before we get into this is off by default, and it does have to be enabled by the world owner or a admin on your world. Because this is more or less an experimental thing that I am trying, I wanted to make it off by default, and then the admins can decide whether or not they want to use it. So if you do want to use this experimental feature, you're going to run a default vanilla command, tag, and then you can do @all players or just @yourself, or you can type them in specifically. Add, and then you're going to add the player stay tag, all lowercase, just like this. and then hit enter. Now that you have tagged the player or players that you want to be able to utilize the player stay command, you are then going to turn player stay on or off, and you're going to type in $PS, and that's going to set the player stay to true. Now this is going to set it to true for everybody that has that player stay tag, so it's going to work globally for everybody that is tagged. So if player stay is set to true, then everybody's going to have barrier blocks, and if the player stay is set to false, then everybody is not going to have the barrier blocks. However, you can remove the player stay tag if a specific player does not want the barrier blocks. So now that we have the player stay set to true, we can now type in $Freecam, and that's going to summon the barrier blocks around the player. If I can find the player, there he is. Let me change the speed down to, say, speed 5, that way we're not zooming all over the place. And you can see that if I face up or down, it's actually selecting a barrier block next to me. The easiest way to do this would probably be to just give myself a barrier block. Since you're holding a barrier block, you'll be able to see barrier blocks, and if you're not, you won't be able to see them. But you can see a lot better now that I actually have barrier blocks all the way around me, and that is of course going to keep me from going off the edge if I'm not paying attention whenever I'm flying around in Freecam mode. Now, as mentioned in the previous Freecam versions, we still have limitations to be able to go forwards and backwards, so we do have to watch the player's movements and use the jump to go forwards and the crouch to go backwards. We cannot use the regular WASD in order to move side to side like you can with spectator mode, unfortunately. However, it does still kind of work out because you can still move the player around using the WASD, and then you can independently move the camera by jumping or crouching. So anytime that you hit Freecam X, it's going to exit out of Freecam and of course clear those barrier blocks. However, there is something that you should know, and that is that the barrier block will fill air blocks around you. However, it will not fill any other blocks, so you don't ever have to worry about it filling a giant hole inside of your base with barrier blocks and then deleting all of your hard-earned blocks that you have inside of your base. It will only fill the surrounding air around you. Unfortunately, that means if you have a snow layer or a flower or something like that, it's not going to fill it because that's technically not air. So if we type in $Freecam, you'll be able to see that we do indeed have the barrier blocks around us, but because we have a snow layer here, it did not fill that. So if you do plan on using the player stay feature, I would recommend just removing the flowers or the snow layers around you before going into Freecam mode. That way you don't ever have to worry about the barrier blocks not spawning. So as you can see here, we're now surrounded by the barrier blocks and everything is good to go. Take note that there is not a barrier block underneath me. That is because I am directly standing on a block that's already there, so it's not an air block. But as you can see, if I were to exit out of Freecam and then go up and rerun the command, I will now have the barrier block directly underneath my feet. So it is a little on the janky side as far as coming up with a solution to keeping people from falling off of the cliff whenever they are actually in Freecam mode. But it does technically work as long as you are using it properly. Now you might ask why I don't use input permission set to false, and that is because it's going to keep you from not only moving, but it's also going to keep you from jumping and crouching. So as you can see, if I go into Freecam mode, it's not going to allow me to move forward or backwards because it's not going by whether or not I'm pushing the crouch or jump button. It's actually going by what the player is doing. And since I'm not able to jump or crouch with that input permission set to false, unfortunately, it's not going to allow me to go forwards or backwards. Now if we bring up the commands again, we can type in the PSX, and that's going to turn off the barriers for all of the players that have the tags. Now I did also add some quality of life features. You might remember that you can disable a specific player from using the Freecam add-on, and that's by giving them the no Freecam tag. So if I give myself the no Freecam tag, I'll be able to type in $FC, and now you'll be able to see it pops up and says you do not have the required permissions to access Freecam mode. It is the exact same thing if I were to try to go into spectator mode, so $spec, because I don't have the required permissions to access the spectator mode, it's going to pop up and tell me. However, if I were to add the spec tag to myself and then I try to go into spectator mode, as you can see, it's going to allow me to go into spectator mode then. So I've done a lot of quality of life fixes. That way I can actually notify the players what the code is actually doing in the background. All of the info for the tagging can be found inside of the README file included with this download, as mentioned. So if you need to know what all is defaulted on or what you need to tag players as, check out that README file and that will tell you all that you need to know. And if you have any more questions from that point forward, you can also follow the link for my Discord inside of the description below or that README file. Alright, let's veer off topic real quick. I'm sure you were all wondering what this is off to the side, and if you were like me, then you probably have no idea what this is. This is something that I recently learned about, and I've been playing Minecraft since 2010 and had no idea that these existed. These are actually a barrier block that you can actually set a barrier inside of your world, and nobody will be able to go over top of them or below them while they're in survival or adventure mode. It is super cool, and I figured that I would share it with you. And yeah, the particles go all the way up to the sky, and that's pretty neat. You can get this block by just giving yourself a border block, and that's all it's going to take, which is pretty cool. I had no idea that these even existed. I've been contemplating making maps, and I'm pretty sure if I decide to start doing that, then I'm going to be using these for sure. Something else that I had no idea about was that you can actually dye shulker shells. I had no idea that these were actually dyeable. Now, everybody knows that you can dye shulker boxes, but I had no idea that you could actually dye the shulkers themselves. It's actually pretty cool and kind of funny. Big shout out to Silent Whisper on his latest video for showing me these. It was really cool and taught me something new. That's why I love Minecraft, because you can play for over 10 years and still learn something new almost every day. Alright, now that I'm done with sharing the excitement over what I just learned, let's get into showing you how to use this new Freecam form. So going back into the Freecam help menu, you might have noticed these on the bottom. We have Cam, Cam X, Cam Menu, and Cam Info. The very first one that we're going to use is Cam Menu. So we can type that in and hit enter, and that's going to give us a book. This book is Freecam BE Cam Settings. You are going to crouch and right click to open that book, and it's going to bring up a menu like this. Now with this menu, you are going to set all of your coordinates here. Now they're going to be defaulted. I already have some previously saved stuff inside of here, but as you can see, now that I cleared that, they are all defaulted to 0. The ease curve is going to be defaulted to linear, and everything else is going to be defaulted to 0. Now I would highly recommend setting these to something like 10, 10, and 10 just to get a feel for it. And if you don't know what any of these values mean, I would highly recommend looking up how the camera command on Bedrock works. It is a little on the sophisticated side. However, once you get the hang of it, it is very simple and easy to use, and this form is going to make it that much easier for you to use. So now that we have our cam position X, Y, and Z set to 10, these are going to be relative to the player. So for example, cam position Y is going to be 10 blocks above the player's head. These are all going to support positive and negative values. And then we're going to leave this on 0 for now, just to make it easier to set up. Pitch and yaw degrees we're both going to leave on 0 for now as well. And then we're going to hit submit to set those values in the memory. Now, unfortunately, due to the way that the forms work, I have not been able to find a workaround. However, you do have to kind of do this twice. You're going to want to click submit to set all of your values in here. And then you're going to go back, bring up the form, and hit activate camera. And then that's going to activate the camera. Now you might have noticed that our perspective has changed, and that's because we are now inside of the camera field of view. So at this point we want to turn around and find the player. So let's do yaw degrees, which is going to turn us left and right, and we're going to do 180 degrees from what we're looking at now. The cam and yaw do not go relative to the player, they go by the degrees of the actual world. So we're going to hit submit to send those values into memory, and then activate camera, and that's going to turn us all the way around. It looks like we need to turn a little bit more to find the player. Negative is going to be left. So if we go negative from 180, let's go down to 150. We're going to be able to move left about 30 degrees. So we're going to hit submit and then activate. You can see we turned a little bit more. Now we just need to tilt down a little bit. So we're going to tilt down, which is positive. So let's go positive 30, which is going to give us a 30 degrees tilt down, and then activate camera. And now you can see that we actually found the player. We can actually go a little bit more to the left, so let's do 140 here, and that should give us a nice centering of the player. Now this does look a little bit complicated, but I assure you the more you use this, the easier it's going to be, and then you'll be able to find the player in no time flat. I did also add the up and down and left and right. That way it will kind of help guide you in finding the player. And that's also why you want to leave the ease time at 0. That way you don't have to wait any time for the camera to actually go into frame and find the final destination. So now that we have these values set, we can now go to ease transition time, and let's do a transition time of 5. That's basically saying that it's going to take 5 seconds to go from the player's camera's field of view out to the set field of view. So now if we hit submit, and we're going to want to clear the camera, that way we go back to the player's field of view, we can hit activate camera. And that's going to give us a nice twist transition to finding the player. And of course you can move around whenever this is happening. Now one thing that you might have noticed that I mentioned is it goes from the player's camera's field of view. So if the camera's facing this way and then I activate the camera, you'll see it gives us a 90 degree twist, and it takes a little bit of time. Let's set that to 3 seconds instead. That way it's a little bit faster. And send that into memory. So if we exit this, you can see that it gives us a 90-degree twist from where we're actually looking. The reason why that's important to know is if we turn 180 degrees and we're looking this way, so now the camera is actually looking towards the mountain, and we hit activate camera, it's actually going to go straight back without turning 180 degrees. So whenever you are using this for all of your cinematic features, just keep in mind it does not go by where the player is looking, it goes by where the player's camera is looking. So for example, I'm looking down at the Cherry Grove now. If I were to activate the camera, it's going to give us that 90-degree turn. However, if I were to clear it and keep the player still without moving him at all, I'm just going to hit F5, and that's going to make me look at the player and realistically look at the mountain behind the player. So now because the camera viewpoint has changed, it's going to actually go straight back instead of doing that 180-degree turn. This is of course the way that Mojang programmed it, and it's not anything that I can change. Just keep in mind of this whenever you are trying to do your cinematics and recording. That way it doesn't mess anything up whenever you're trying to record a scene. Now if you were to set this even higher, let's say 50, and then we're going to send that into memory, activate camera. That's going to give us a nice little cinematic scale, and of course you can run around, mine your tree, maybe go over here, pick something up, do whatever you want to with all of your cinematic scenes, and it's going to give you a really cool feature that you can add inside of your videos or whatever else you care to do with it. Now I've made this pretty much as adjustable as I possibly can. You can go back to 0 on this, and then let's do 40. So we're going to be 40 blocks above the player's head. And well, actually let's go a little on the crazy side. Let's go 300. So we'll be 300 blocks above the player's head. And let's change this to spring. Now I might eventually make this into a drop down menu. As for now, you're going to have to manually change it. However, there is a bunch of different curve settings. I'll leave a link for all of them. Just make sure that you spell them correctly, underscores and all inside of here if it has an underscore. That way it works correctly. If it is not spelled correctly, I did make it to where it's going to tell you please enter a valid ease curve. So we can change that to spring, and then we're going to set that, and that's going to save the settings. Let's set the cam pitch degrees facing straight down, which is 90 degrees. Now, if you go any higher than 90 degrees on the cam pitch degrees, it's going to give you a warning because you cannot go any higher than 90. However, on the yaw degrees, it will basically support up to infinite, I believe. However, I have not been able to break the form by adding in too high of a value here. It just continues to go inside of a circle. So for now, we're going to leave that as 0. So we have 0, 300 on the Y directly above the player. We have the spring curve, which is kind of a fun curve. Ease time is 2 seconds. Cam pitch degrees is 90, looking straight down. And then this is set to 0. We can submit the settings. And then I would hold on because we are going way up to 300. And as you can see, we have a nice spring effect. And of course, if you wanted to do another cinematic scene, you could always move this cam position down from 300. And we could do 10 blocks above the player's head. We're going to make this linear again. Transition time, we're going to want to do, let's do 10 seconds. That might be a little on the fast side. Let's do 30 seconds. We can always make it a little faster. And then submit that into memory and activate camera. As you can see, that's going to go down nice and slow. And whenever we get down low enough, you'll be able to have the player render in. And of course, you can move around and make a cinematic scene of the player moving from directly above as well. Now, these can, of course, be adjusted on the fly as well. Now, at this point, we can go to the side by 30. I set it to spring. We can do a transition time of 1. That way, everybody gets whiplash. And then we can send this into settings and activate camera. And as you can see, we spring all the way to the side, just like so. There is basically so much that you can do with this form here. Let me know how you use this and what your favorite settings are, because I would love to see what you guys come up with. Now, you might have also noticed a few separate things here on the form. We have show stored values, look at player, clear camera memory, clear camera, and activate camera. These two you've already seen here. Clear camera memory essentially sets all of your values to 0. Now, all of these values, the cam position X, Y, and Z, are all relative to the player as mentioned. The cam pitch and cam yaw is not relative to the player. And then we have the ease curve, which is going to be global. Global meaning whatever you set this to is going to affect all of the players. However, what this is currently set to will show on the form here. However, keep in mind if somebody changes this setting after you have the form open, which is pretty unlikely to happen, but if they do, then you might get a different effect because this is global and it affects all of the players. I might change this inside of the future, but for now it affects everybody. 9 times out of 10, you're just going to leave this on the default linear because that's going to work great for pretty much everybody. Transition time is not global. That is going to basically be per player. Essentially everything here, excluding the ease curve, is going to be stored in game memory, whereas the ease curve is stored in code memory. So going down to look at player, basically look at player is going to directly look at the player, obviously, if you couldn't tell from it saying look at player. However, it is going to completely ignore the ease curve and transition time, and it's going to instantly look at the player, and it's also going to ignore the values that are inside of the pitch and the yaw degrees field here. So for example, if we hit look at player and hit submit, it's instantly going to look at the player, and it's going to do that instantly. Unfortunately, I'm not able to change this because it's the way that Mojang has the command set up. I might be able to change this inside of the future, however, as of version 1.10, this is the way that it is. The only other one that we need to go over is the showed stored values. So if we toggle that and hit submit, it's going to show us all of the stored values that are in memory, and you can see the ease curve value says global as well. That way, if you ever need to bring up chat to see what everything is set to, it's right here and easy to access. You can also exit out of the actual camera command by typing cam X. That's going to bring you back to the player perspective. And you can also type in !cam, and that's going to run whatever you have set inside of the form. So in order to download this, I'm going to show you with the older version of Freecam because I have yet to upload the new one. Don't worry, it's going to be uploaded by the time you actually see this video. But you're going to go over to my website, xrsbuiltx, and you're going to navigate to the add-on section. You're going to go all the way down here and find Freecam BE. It's going to be version 1.10, and you're going to click on download. It's going to start downloading, and then whenever it's done downloading, you can click on this and hit extract all, extract it to wherever you would like. Once it's extracted, you should have a folder. You can double click the folder and then go into the Freecam BE folder where you should find a add-on. You can double click on this add-on and that's going to self-import into your Minecraft client. Inside of the new version, you're also going to have text documents here such as frequently asked questions, change logs, and stuff of that nature. Once it's done importing into your Minecraft client, you just add the behavior pack into your world just like any other add-on. There is no resource pack for Freecam, and once you've done that, you're good to go. I did also add some quality of life changes to make things a little bit better as mentioned, and I also did some bug fixing because we actually had a bug that could result in a crash if a player name had a space inside of it. It had to do with how the code concatenated with the player name, and it wasn't very happy. It did not like doing it that way, so I ended up having to come up with a fix for it. And now all is good. We should not have any other problems with player names with spaces in them. With that being said, any issues can be reported to my Discord, so the link for that's down below if you need to report a bug or if you just want to come and hang out and be part of the community. Recommendations for this add-on along with all of my other add-ons are also very welcome. With that being said, I think the camera has now gotten tired of me talking. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, drop a like on your way out, and if you have yet to subscribe, be sure to subscribe before you go. Make sure that you hit that bell notification, that way you get notified on each and every upload, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!